Morning, brethren. Welcome to another daily devotional. I want to read this morning from Psalm 72. Psalm 72, and from verse 8 and following. Speaking of the Messiah whom God had promised to send, this Psalm of Solomon speaks of the glorious reign of Messiah. May he have dominion from sea to sea, and from the river to the ends of the earth. May desert tribes bow down before him, and his enemies lick the dust. May the kings of Tarshish and of the islands render him tribute. May the kings of Sheba and Seba bring gifts. May all kings fall down before him. All nations serve him. This morning in our daily devotions, we're going to be thinking about one of our own, that is, a Reformed Presbyterian missionary. This is the gentleman in question. His name, John G. Paton, missionary of the Reformed Presbyterian Church to the islands of the New Hebrides in the Pacific Ocean. John Paton was born on the 24th of May, 1824. The eldest of 11 children in his family in the county of Dumfriesshire. At the age of 12, he worked for his dad in his dad's business making stockings. He was profoundly influenced by his father. His father was a very godly, devout Christian. 3 times each day, his father would go into a little room known as his prayer closet and pray for his family, for the church, and for the extension of Christ's kingdom throughout the world. Twice a day, once in the morning and once at evening, he would have family worship with his children and his wife. John G. Paton felt called by God to mission work, and he went to Glasgow to study medicine and also theology. While he was in Glasgow, he worked as a city missionary, taking the gospel around some of the poorest parts of the city. On the 23rd of March 1858, he was ordained as a minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church. Later that same year, about a month later, on the 2nd of April, he married Mary Ann Robinson. And 14 days later, after their marriage, they sailed to the South Pacific. John and Mary landed at the island of Tanna on the 5th of November 1858. So as you can see, it took a long time to travel that distance in those days. They built their own home at Port Resolution on the island. The natives in Tanna were cannibals. He describes them as painted savages, enveloped in the superstitions and cruelties of heathenism at its worst. Tragedy struck 3 months or so later. His wife gave birth to a son, Peter, and only 19 days later, his wife, Mary, died from a fever. He buried her on the island, and 17 days after his wife's death, his baby son, Peter, died. J.G. Paton spent many nights sleeping on top of his loved ones' graves in order to protect them from the local cannibals. Such was the circumstances in which he chose to minister. He continued to reach out with the gospel to the natives despite an awful lot of hostility and numerous attempts on his life. He returned to Scotland in order to encourage support and also to try and encourage others to take up the work of mission work in the New Hebrides. In 1864, he remarried This time a lady by the name of Margaret Whitecross. And in 1866, 2 years later, he and his wife moved back to the New Hebrides, where they built a new mission station on Aniwa Island, which was the closest island to Tanna. He also erected 2 houses for orphan children that they cared for, and later erected a church and other buildings. The natives on Aniwa Island were very similar to the natives on Tanna. While he was on Aniwa with his wife, they had 6 children, 4 of whom died in infancy. John G. Paton gave himself to learning the language of the people of the islands. He was able then to turn it to writing, and his wife engaged in teaching the local women, where there was a group of about 50 women and girls that she taught in all sorts of different disciplines. John G. Paton translated the scriptures into the native tongue of the people, and he also explained the gospel to them. He and his wife ministered to the sick and dying, taught the local people to use tools, organised a worship service every Lord's Day, and also encouraged native teachers to go to the villages of other islands in order to teach and to preach the gospel. People were saved under his ministry. He worked extremely hard in circumstances of deprivation and disease and certainly danger. But eventually, through his perseverance, almost everyone on the island of Aniwa came to faith. In 1899, he had the joy of seeing the first Aniwa New Testament printed, and a mission on the island where 25 to 30 people who had come to faith went out to preach to their own native people on the islands around about. John G. Paton's wife died on the 16th of May 1905, aged 64. He himself lived a further 2 years, dying at the age of 82 on the 28th of January 1907. Mission work for John Paton was arduous. It was emotionally distressing, having lost his first wife and son. It was dangerous, living in circumstances where he was regularly attacked and his life was under threat. But such was his love for the people of these islands that he went back time and again, bringing the gospel to them and eventually seeing the people of the islands coming and bowing the knee to King Jesus. As those who belong to the same denomination, many of you who are listening to this, we should be thankful to God for such a man as John G. Paton. His life story has been recorded in a book, and it's worth reading. It challenges us. It says to us, are we involved in taking the gospel to the ends of the earth? Do we support the mission work that our own denomination is involved in? The mission work in Nantes, in France, and the mission work just outside Malaga, in Spain. We thank God for our missionaries, that they do not have to face the same dangers and deprivation and disease that John G. Paton had to face. But the work of mission is still not easy, and it is something that all of us should be involved in through prayer, through practical giving, and through corresponding with our missionaries to encourage them in the work of God's kingdom. May God help us to be like John G. Paton, people of faith who are mission-minded and want to see Christ's name brought to the ends of the earth. May God bless you today. Have a good day, brethren.